the process of writing this together was really interesting because of our distance and trying to figure out our schedules and making that
Mhm.
work. When I was working at the restaurant, and it's funny because I feel like for both of us, our jobs, I feel like it was stressful, but oddly with this job and this story, it's like boring.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, our jobs in real life were a lot more interesting than
yeah, like every day could be different. And the way that we really wrote the story was just we sat down many, many times and just talked over it. For at first, it was really figuring out what is the story here? What are the inspirations? What are we? Um,
are we?
what are
What is
we?
story?
What is story? But then it led into starting to actually outline it. I think that was the first thing we did was make an outline, I believe, of like here's some plot points, and then well
You
maybe
probably still
we could
have
change
all of
that.
that in the Google Docs somewhere.
I think so. It probably is, yeah. And it's interesting to see what was tweaked, and like what's changed. But then once we felt solid, once we felt like okay, I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. That's when we started kind of back and forth with the script. So actually
Mhm.
writing the first draft of the script. And one of my favorite things that you did in the script is it's a one word change, but to me it made me think differently about Mr. Watterson. There's a line that's in episode 1,
Oh,
and
good.
I'd written I'd written this line when he's telling the fishing analogy, but there was a line where he says, "We make the numbers go up, and the boss is happy. When the boss is happy, I'm happy." That's what I'd written, and Kari just removed the last word,
And when the boss is happy, I'm. Well,
and that completely changed that sentence, and like changed. You saw the cracks through Watterson's character a little bit.
That's how you get a co-writing credit, baby.
Yeah, and I
It's
just
like jazz. It's about the words you don't say.
it's one of my just it's such a simple change, but it made such a big difference.
It's about the words you don't write.
It's like music where it's like the absence of sound is
Hmm.
just as important as sound.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess just to jump off of that, like one thing that we talked about a lot is just like, yeah, the tone. And how, and I mean, I do think that, like, and listen, all right, I don't want to, I'm not just saying this because this is the director's commentary on a thing that we made, but your art style is really cool. It's a really it's just a
Thank
really
you.
cool looking art style, where it's like it is like this weird mix of 2D and 3D, where like there are times you're watching it and you're like I can't tell. I mean, like obviously they're operating within a 3D space, but like the models themselves are like shaded in a way where it's like oh you don't really tell until like you see like maybe the fingers. Like there are some things that look more 3D than others, but it's like what that gives us is the ability to make something that feels a lot more cinematic than like
Mm.
anime. And from that, it was like, okay, well, what that also gives us is the ability to have voice performances that are a lot more natural, and a lot more like how people talk, because it doesn't feel like you're watching a cartoon, or at least that's kind of what I wanted is like it doesn't feel like you're watching like SpongeBob or where you expect like these really big like wild like kind of over exaggerated like pronunciations of words or like really
Mm.
like quippy short snappy like ways of talking like we have like listen to me ramble on about nothing right now like this is how people talk. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying words that come to my brain as soon as they pop up, and that's what people do a lot of the time. So it's like, yeah, I guess I figured that, like in that particular scene, like kind of like yeah, one it like kind of adds like a layer of mystery to the character where it's just like he's obviously trying to say that when the boss is happy, he's happy, but for whatever reason, he's stopping himself and thinking about what like that means, maybe whether or not that's true, and then instead of him just saying the line, people get to think like, oh, he's not happy.
Yeah.
Happy.
Yeah.
He knows he should be, but he's not. And it's like, oh, I wonder where that's going to go later. And I think it's in that same story that, like the fishing story, that that God bless him, which pretty sure I added as a joke at first. If I could just clarify, I didn't mean that the joke was that his dad was dead.
Yeah, wait a minute.
The joke was more that he was like telling this rambly story about this thing that he did with his dad, and it's just like, who gives a shit, you know, like who cares? And then he's like, God bless him, and it's like, oh damn it,
Yeah,
like
I can't say anything now.
yeah, I mean, if it was about you, like, is his dad all right, fine? And like Vincent's just like, huh, yeah, right, yeah, God bless him, Jesus.
Yeah, that was a really great point about like the style kind of led to a more cinematic type of story, which was something that like I always love seeing in animation. I feel like we don't see it enough. And I always like to elevate like trying to do different genres of animation, telling different kinds of stories than what you just typically see.
Not this one though. This is just a normal story.
This is just a normal story like you've seen before.
Like you've seen.
But
I mean,
go watch it though. Yeah, watch it. Watch it a couple times. Just keep watching it.
It's a good story. It's a classic.
The style that it has actually did come about kind of out of necessity, because it's, for those of you that don't know, I don't know if I ever mentioned it. For those of you that know about Blender, I think if you've seen the videos where I kind of show the behind the scenes of it, then you will have seen that, oh yeah, he's working in Blender. That's something I've used for a long time, and for me it's like the most comfortable and the way I can animate the most efficiently. And when I was working on Grimsby, I was trying to create faces that looked like the drawings that I'd done, but I'm not very good at 3D modeling. Like faces especially are really difficult. So I stuck with a two-dimensional look.
So I didn't.
Yeah, so I just didn't. So I went for more of a 2D look because I could make it look exactly like the drawings, and it didn't matter what angle. I could make the angle look exactly the way I needed it to be. But then the bodies, that kind of opened an issue where it was kind of difficult to make all these parts work two-dimensionally. So I found it easier to work with the 3D model of the body. Plus, you can use some motion capture data with something like that to, if you have a certain shot where you just need an action like walking or running, you can utilize that and mix that in with your animation to save, especially when you're doing it just as one person. It's helpful to have some things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's helpful to find, really finding ways to make it efficient, not lowering the quality of it, but making it, like, realizing what your limitations are and working with them, and like trying to make something
you don't need
efficiently.
to do the work, like, don't.
Yeah, if it's something you can reuse it.
Yeah,
like don't do this. Do not do the same work twice. That's exactly the same. Right. But yeah, so that created this kind of look, and I've experimented that with the other short films before this. But I feel like it's really dialed in now with this particular style, and it's kind of like 3D cell shaded bodies and 3D sets, which are great because we can move the camera wherever we want and do really cinematic shots. But the faces can be like the drawings, and they're separate, so they're easy to animate. They're simple shapes, and characters can be designed easily.
I think I feel like this is like something on the level of like a Joel Hamer, or like one of those like really distinct like art styles that will be associated with you forever.
That's, to be able to have something like that's really special, because like it's not always, it's hard to find that sometimes. Yeah, I'm really fortunate to have found a style that looks that way, that looks unique. We had mentioned about the voices. I guess we'll briefly talk about the audition process and finding the right voice. We'd gone back to casting call again to do it. I had done that for Grimsby as well. And Justin, who worked on Grimsby, I did bring him back, and particularly because I liked what he did on Grimsby, and I liked. And he did really good. Yeah, and I liked.
He did do really good.
He's going to be like the John Ratzenberger of these, or he's just going to keep showing up every time. Um,
Even if it's just like just like, oh hey Justin, he's like hey,
yeah, like just
That's
one
it. That's
line.
smart.
We'll have him come in. He really created this character vocally in a neat way. Like even from the auditions, and even when we did the table read together. Since then, he's developed. I feel like he's developed it more, and he lived as this character in a way with the voice. You kind of,
Yeah,
I like what he did with
he
that.
used the fielder method for sure.
Yeah, there were like there were over 900 auditions for his project. It was crazy.
That was crazy. That was a lot of auditions.
There were so many of them. We had help from.
We had pretty close to 1,000.
Yeah, it was almost 1,000. We had help from Mason, aka Swag, as many of you probably know him, from Lonely Bros.
That was my best. That was my favorite part. My favorite part was giving him all the auditions to look through.
Yeah, he looked through them, tossed out ones that just didn't work, and created a really great selection of like finalists. And really narrowed it down and made that a lot easier. Yeah, like well,
I mean, it's like what you said about the writing auditions. It's like a lot of people just you know.
Yeah, like you can hear the fan on in the background. Like,
yeah, it was like bad mic quality or like so it's like it's easy to just kind of sort through and kind of get the ones that are like, oh wow, yeah, that's cool. That's a unique take on. And I mean, we, if I remember correctly, still have the folder of auditions, and there were a lot that we liked, but didn't know, that they 100% fit they only 80 or 90% fit the character. And we were saying like, yeah, like if we have other things, like we might not even need to do like a casting call for auditions because we have kind of a little backlog of everyone that we did like but didn't make the cut for this project.
There were different aspects of the voices that we liked that we ended up picking the cast, whether it be their tone or the attitude that they gave the character. There was some discussion about it, but I think it was pretty straightforward in terms of we knew pretty quickly who it was going to be.
Because there were 2 rounds, like, because we kept the auditions open for 2 weeks. At the end of the first week, we kind of looked through and got like, okay, we're pretty sure we're going to go with like these people. And then at the end of the second week, it was like, okay, here are the finalists from the last round. And then here are the new ones coming in, and we'll see kind of what we think about the new people.
And then we scheduled out a table read, which that was actually... because before with Grimsey, I remember just sending off the scripts, but I really am glad that you suggested that because it allowed us to kind of talk with the cast about the concept, and it allowed them to have this chemistry with each other. And some of the recordings from the table read are in the episode. There are some lines that are from the table read.
Oh wow!
That ended up getting used just because I liked that take particularly, and it just fit in.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
And it was cool for us to hear the script brought to life.
Yeah.
Like just hearing just what we've been working at for months and months, kind of starting to visualize it kind of as you're hearing the voices. And all throughout the process too, I was building the sets and getting the props in there, so that by the time we got to this point with the voices, like everything was ready to go for animation, which is also really helpful because I don't have to make things on the fly really. I have everything ready.
And that's like another thing about Blender is like you just make like once you make the set, like it's made. Like you don't have to worry about like backgrounds.
Yeah, being able to just, instead of having to draw the backgrounds every time or create like a new drawing of it, you can just create that set and move the camera in there wherever. And having the characters actually in the set interacting with the props is really helpful because you don't have to think about the backdrop separately. It's like kind of just being there on set filming them and making those kind of decisions, which is really, and that was another aspect is we had worked out the shot list for it and really taking the time to figure out what each shot was going to be like ahead of time, which I think if you're working with a bigger team, you would also want to storyboard that. But since I'm the only animator, I knew in my head what, based on the shot list, what we were talking about. So that was very, very helpful because it gave me a structure to go by. Because it's so, being able to split it up piece by piece because it's so big at the end. To look at it just a shot at a time is really helpful. Just to focus in on each little part.
Wow.
You know,
I do remember we talked about, I guess I'll pause real quick for a second. We talked about those the opening shot. Or the opening shots just kind of showing different aspects of each character.
Yeah.
I think that was your idea.
I stole it.
You stole it.
I stole it. I stole that one from Jack Stauber. He does that in Opal, like a little musical short film thing he did for Adult Swim.
It's a cool intro.
It's a good way to start a thing.
And it'll make you think when you see the whole series. If you watch it again, I feel like it just hits differently, maybe.
That's what it did in his thing, too. His was better, though, because it had, like, music and shit. It was all like... And then when you watch it again, you're like, oh, I understand now.
Wow, that sounds like a great time. I just got a game about fishing.
Not too...
I will pause here just because I remember this shot was... interesting to block this, to have Watterson in the middle and those two on the side, which actually having that wider aspect ratio really helped make that look good.
Why this aspect ratio? Because it's a very wide, dare I say, cinematic aspect ratio.
Yeah, that was all part of, again, I think showing you visually maybe even in a subconscious way that this is more of a cinematic story and that the way that we are presenting this is different than what you've seen. And I just always liked using that stylistically just because I think it's different to do that for animation in that way. To use it in neat ways with the shots, and to block them so that they utilize how wide the screen is.
Politics and such as people do while we ate lunch. Oh, I almost.
And I do remember the clock on the wall. I had to go back and fix the time. Because there's a time, it's like 8 something.
When you have it on its watch.
Yeah, and I realized all those shots are wrong with the clock. So I had to just go back and re-render it, which really wasn't that bad. But yeah.
Attention to detail.
Because I knew somebody was going to see that and comment and be like, the time.
Actually, if you look behind Mr. Watterson, CinemaSins ass. Like, why does the clock on the wall say this when the watch says this? Ding, ding.
Yeah. I did not want that video to happen.
Dad gets up out of his chair to move to another spot, and he just suddenly loses
and this whole fishing story, I remember I just threw this down on the script thinking that maybe we would change it later because I didn't really know what for him to say. Like, and I was rambling on in the script, like, fishing, and he fell into the lake and trying to make it funny, and then it just worked. And there's stuff that later thematically that you brought into the story then that actually tied back to that fishing story, which is cool. It just ended up being perfect. And the whole allegory of fishing with the job, like, I didn't even think about any of that. I just or did I? I should claim that maybe it was there all along.
Aaron, the answer is always yes. You do there's that one, oh geez. You know what sucks is that now I don't remember his name. Like, the director from Shazam.
What's his name?
Pony Smasher?
I was looking at his videos recently.
That's his name to me now. I don't remember. I don't remember his actual name. I only remember his YouTube name. So there's a guy named Pony Smasher on YouTube. Really great guy. I think he like directs or something. And no, I'm kidding. But yeah, he's like the director of Shazam, Oculus, I think, and Lights Out. And he has a YouTube channel that he had while he was doing the short film for Lights Out. And he still posts on there every now and then. And he like has this video about like the production process of Shazam and how, like, you know, there are like these video essayists that give him credit for things that were completely accidental. And they're like, oh yeah, all the characters have arcs. See, like the little black girl, like they were waiting for her because she had to tie her shoes, but at the end she gets super speed, so now she can know they don't have to wait for her anymore. And it's like, wow, it's fun how they like thought about that. And he's like, yeah, totally. We definitely didn't come up with that scene last minute because it was raining outside, and if you look at her shoes, she's wearing Velcro, so they don't even need to be tied. And like it's like yeah, no, that's what we meant. That's what we did that on purpose.
It was all on purpose. Yeah.
I guess you're my catch of the
Pause
day,
it.
Dad.
Oh,
Pause
it.
Look at that. Look at that. You did the thing with the cup.
Yeah, the cup. And the whole reason why I did that is because it was just in the way. And instead of moving it, so I thought, oh, let me move out of the shot. Instead of doing that, I just thought, I'll have him bump it. I'll actually have him move it rather than just getting rid of it or moving it.
Yeah.
That was tricky. There were things on the desk I had to make sure were out of the way because his hands were like positioning. That was a little bit tricky.
Yeah. That was 2 hours of work right there.
Yeah. Actually, like this shot probably was like 2 hours.
While we're here, I do think it would be cool to know kind of the people who are watching this video, kind of like what your interest in the short is. Like if it's as an animator, as someone who's working on short films themselves, as a writer, as a voice actor, or just like a viewer who's just like, hey, what's this? Maybe you just stumble across it. And you're just so that we know kind of what we're dealing with here in terms of what people might want to see more of.
If you want some advice, Vincent.
Let me pause at this part. So this whole fishing thing. So I'm doing these shots with Mr. Watterson's conversation, and it's like, he explains this fishing analogy. I don't want to do another whole shot of him just talking, and I was thinking about how can I cut to that to make it interesting. So I thought to change it up for the story and also just for the workflow, I just did a completely different style for this part, making it look kind of like paper and like construction paper cutouts, and I wanted to give it a really different feel, to change it up a little bit and kind of play with the graphic representations of this analogy, and also kind of fit into the office-y theme. And I think it just helps break it up.
Had you done anything like this before?
On Grimsey, there's this montage sequence, but it was different. It wasn't like paper, and this was the first time that I did this sort of style, and kind of, I had messed with it a little bit in the past, but yes, it's lovely corporate music.
All you have to do is lure them in with your fancy salesman talk and hook 'em. B-I-N-G-O. Bingo. We've made a sale.
And that whole bingo thing was Justin's improv too, because that wasn't even in the script.
No, I'm pretty sure we wrote that.
Yeah, that was our idea. That was our idea.
Yeah, no, Justin with the improv. And it's like, like Watterson is like the character. Like if you're going to do improv, like I think like Watterson, it works better for him. For his character. I do like the screams you added.
And it's actually a Wilhelm scream.
It sure is.
But it's reversed.
This was my last break.
That also was improv from Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the script we just kind of had it like an and like he's gonna move on. But and that was from the table read, specifically that part. When he did that, I thought it'd be funny if he did it so loudly that would just disrupt the flow of everybody else and just be kind of a wide shot. And also it was perfect timing, and I didn't even think about it before until it came up, to make sort of an establishing shot of the office kind of briefly, because we hadn't seen it yet. So it allowed for that funny little moment, but it also kind of showed you where you are outside of his office. Yeah.
I don't know if I can work under such abusive conditions. I'm sure Mr. Dubs will understand.
And those game sounds are from all kinds of random little video games I've made in the past, because I had a bunch of old sounds, and it was really satisfying to take old projects that I quit on from like years ago because they just didn't work, and use something from them, and they kind of
Cycle.
yeah. And then this shot
I'm sure
right
Mr.
after
Dubs
this,
will understand.
this one
Don't you just do
was the most difficult shot.
Just him running around.
Just him running around, because the frame rate of the characters is half of the frame rate of the camera. So it was trying to get all of that settled. And then it was like combined motion capture data and then moving him and getting him in the right spot. Could not get that to look right for a while. It had to be quick, and he had to pull the game down, and like it had to be in time with the dialogue, because the way that he says the line kind of implies that just do the job. Like it's kind of the moment when he gets in front of Jake, and the camera needed to pan correctly. So it was tricky, and it's such a quick little shot, but it's never the shot that I think will be the most difficult. It is. It's always a really random shot. And that is episode 1.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, I'm
Beautiful.
really happy with how it turned out. And it's really great to see what you and I have been writing and working on for so long, to see it starting to actually like visually come to fruition in that way.
Yeah, like piece by piece.
Yeah.
And yeah, now that's one episode of, what did we say, 6?
6, I think. 6 episodes.
Yeah, around. So it's like, yeah, no, it's just the beginning, and it stays about the same throughout the rest of it. So still watch it. You should definitely watch it still. But you know, if you're expecting anything like big to happen, you know, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't. You shouldn't expect that. I mean, I feel like we're gonna have more of these. I think, like more of these where we're talking, or where we're talking to like a voice actor. You know, while we're here, like we are like working on that like whole series of videos to kind of pad out the time between parts. So if you have any, if you're here from Joy or Edwin or Kevin or Justin's like Twitters or Instagrams or whatever, and you have any questions that you want us to ask them, now's the time. Yeah, we can collect those, and when we kind of do the interview series with them, where we kind of talk about them and their lives and voice acting and all of that, we can ask them some questions.
Yeah, comment them down below, and yeah, we will file those for that, because we definitely want to get into doing those. And also, is there anything you want to plug that you're working on, or anything you want to?
Just those. Watch the sales off. And I mean, is there anything I want to plug? I mean, yeah, like right now it's basically just like as far as like things that are like happening in the future, it's like, yeah, like this for sure. Like go to our socials and like those, and
all those are in the description.
Yeah. And then just say good things about it. You know, this is an aggressively independent project.
Yes.
That we are funding with our own blood and sweat and tears. So, you know, if you want to grab this video and show it to everyone you know,
yes, please share it with people that
if you want to go to the movie theater and like break into the projection room and like hook up your phone and just play it over the showing of Wakanda Forever. Just throw it in there as an ad. They won't even notice.
Yeah,
like,
put it in one of the commercials.
Yeah, they'll just be like, "Wow, that was a weird commercial." That would be much appreciated. If you want to show your cats or dogs, like just get creative. Like make sure people are seeing it. If you like it, if you don't, that's fine. But we can't be friends.
Yeah, if you don't share it, then.
That's your right as an American, but get out of my country. I just remembered I have a YouTube channel that I don't do anything with. I could have plugged that.
You could plug that, yeah, and I could
plug that.
There's a link to that in the description, in the card.
Planet.
I think I can put it up in a card. Yeah, I'll put it on the screen. Amateur Planet.
Amateur.
It's somewhere.
It's yeah, Amateur Planet. I did things on YouTube once. But yeah, no, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
And we'll see you next
That's
time.
episode 1. Woo!
Episode 1. Go check it out.
Episode 1.
Episode 1. See you guys next time.